Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Legend of Korra Book 2 Spirits episode commentary. This is going to be the commentary for K203 Civil Wars Part 1. This one is actually going to start off with the intro for the opening to the show again, so unlike last time where I didn't have the intro on the episode I'm watching, this time it does. So get your episode ready to play at the start with the Fire, Earth, Air, Water opening bit. I'm going to stop speaking now in a moment, and then when I start speaking again, that's when you hit play, and that's when you'll be matched up with this fan commentary track. So I'm going to stop speaking now. Okay, so here is the episode, Civil Wars Part 1. This is obviously the first of a two-parter very early on in the series. Definitely, I think some episodes that took people a bit by surprise in terms of where they went, and that they were called Civil Wars, but we never as such got the Civil War in these episodes. We didn't really see it until much later on in the season, but I think really what the episode was meant to mean is more civil as in familial type stuff. Like, it is kind of still dealing with the stuff of like her Korra dealing with her parents, her uncle and stuff like that. So civil as in meaning family and stuff like that, I think is more what this title's referring to, even though it does set up the whole idea of a civil war in the North and South. But yeah, we get some pretty important stuff in these episodes, and I think it is these two episodes together are the episodes that really got people invested in Book 2 because of some of the stuff they set up. Maybe not what people expected in terms of the book being called Spirits, and then we actually take a pretty long break from Spirits until really the end of the Sting, Peacekeepers, that sort of thing, when Korra gets attacked, and then into Beginnings. But at the start of this episode, really interesting, we see just Unalaq's forces just basically locking off the harbor. No one's allowed in, no one's allowed out. He's taking over control, even though he's already the chief, showing that not everyone agreed with the whole idea of the two tribes kind of being run by the same person, which obviously happened when the North came down to help the South, Paku and stuff like that. And here's Unalaq's plan. He wants Korra to open the northern portal next. And this is where we kind of get set up with the idea that you can kind of transfer between one and the other and stuff like that. But yep, interesting stuff. And now we cut back to the air temples, which, as I said in the last one, is where we see this other kind of civil war kind of going on, Tenzin between his siblings and stuff like that, and also in some ways Tenzin dealing with his own children. He's kind of been absent a lot just because of being busy with Republic City, and now we're seeing kind of him realize that and kind of try to be a better father maybe than Aang was to his own kind of kids, something like that. But there's Rohan, who isn't so much a character now, but it's just interesting that they have a baby character. They're showing him there. It kind of makes me want to wish that they had a kind of flash forward and he's old enough to speak or something like that. But here's a setup that Aang went off on alone trips with Tenzin, not bringing Kaya and Bumi with them. That's really interesting, just because you don't expect that from Aang. A lot of people were angry that this episode was kind of setting up Aang as this anything but perfect father. But I think there's a sort of balance here in that he realized that he had to sacrifice some kind of sort of things with his other kids just to have some alone time with Tenzin to transfer over all of this information about airbending, being the spiritual guide to the Avatar and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll get into that more over the course of the episode. Here's the setup that the kids insulted Iki, and then she's kind of gone off on her own. She's kind of ran away from the rest of everyone. I found it really funny, just the whole idea of Bumi having a nemesis in this kind of shark squid. And then Jinora, after being presented as this kind of like important character last time, starts this one by insulting her sister and kind of getting in trouble with her mother. it was definitely an interesting one that we thought something was going to happen here when the episode first aired, but we later see that just she's still a kid. She just is important when the time comes, and then they're going to have a kind of sibling search for Iki. Milo, I'm looking forward to him maybe getting a bit more of a character arc, but it's interesting. Um, Interesting here that Tonrock is not actually the chief of the South until the end of the book, but all of the Southerners kind of look up to him as the leader and go to the Korra's kind of family home as the place to meet up because Avatar, Tonrock, that's like the family to go to, and even Varric is there. And Varric is the one here inciting kind of rebellion and war in the Southerners here. And basically, this is what happens, in that it's Varric who kind of really starts a war and gets the Southerners like angry. He's the guy who just like tells them like rebellion. Korra's trying to be the bridge between both tribes here, and she has to deal with both spiritual balance as well as just balance between the humans, and no one else is really focused on the spiritual aspect, which makes Korra's decision at the end to keep the spirit portals open even more important. That we see that the South really isn't very spiritual, and that maybe having the spirits out and about will make it even more interesting. And then Korra just questioning, like, are you crazy trying to start a war? That's the last thing we need. And some people are kind of disagreeing with her. But Udalok realizes that, no, Tonrock, I mean, those names are so similar just in the way they end. But he just has to be really delicate with her and just tell her, talk to my brother and try and stop this. And then there's Varric. We need to start preparing for war. Basically confirming that, yes, I'm behind all of this in the end. Those laughs are just fantastic. Some of the funniest laughs in the series. Even Bolin's fake laugh is pretty good here. Just that she's treating him like a complete slave, and he just doesn't quite have the kind of guts just to kind of stand up for himself or break up with her. And here it comes, the whole idea of marriage. Well, she didn't say it as much there, but that's what's going to happen, and he's just eager to see a familiar face to get away from her. It's a nice setup, especially when you consider where this eventually goes in terms of the two kind of actually falling for each other a bit and come the finale. And Mako's just like, just break up with her. And Mako's giving him just advice, and you kind of agree that this is what he needs to do. People gave him so much, Mako, so much abuse for this line, but really he's just, that's just like an analogy. That's kind of what Bolin kind of needs to do at this point in time. He's not calling Eska a blood-sucking leech, just that it's something you just need to be like assertive and just go like, it's over. Don't try and like come up with a funny way to do it. Just state your mind and it'll happen. And then like what a like atmospheric way to show Unalak, as it like he might as well have a sign over his head in that throne saying, "I am the villain." But it's just interesting to see Korra speaking up for the South where she's from and talking about the whole idea of them being invaded. And he's like, well, they're chief. And she's trying to just be balanced on both sides. And you see the situation she's in where she has to stand up for the South where she's from, but she also has to stand up for the whole idea of Unlock trying to bring some level of spiritual balance back. And he's putting a lot of pressure on her here, even though that's kind of what she's been wanting at the start of this book. She's so used to so many people trying to help her out, trying to do things for her, that him just saying like, this is all on you. It's putting a lot of pressure on her, kind of immediately. She's just over the past few months in book one, book two, gotten into this whole idea that she can make her own decisions, like going to Republic City, uh, making decisions for herself. And now she's suddenly been overloaded with all of this stuff that she has to do on her own. So a lot of people really didn't like Korra's character at the start of this, but I was just kind of could see a lot of sympathy for her, just in how much she had to go through, and that they did all of that, and how kind of strong of a character she remained, even though all of this was going on. And then this is a interesting scene, just that you see the soldiers trying to assert themselves, picking on the kids, and then the elders of the south trying to stand up for them, and then Korra having to come between them to stop a war, but that putting her in a position where she's taking sides. It appears that she's taking sides, but she's not actually doing that. And then the kids start throwing snowballs at her, even though she was kind of jumped in to protect them as well. And it's only Tonrock coming in again, where she didn't quite need it to stop this situation. And then it just kind of makes her a little bit more angry at him again. As we see here, I think he's going to go talk to her, and she'll already be walking away. She's just kind of a bit sick of him constantly having to think he has to jump in for her when, you know, you didn't know what she was going to do next. She wasn't in a completely helpless situation there. But yep, here's the back to the Tenzin and his siblings. It's just interesting to see these characters all interacting. It's an older group of characters, even older than the increase from the Aang gang to Korra's crew. It's just seeing these kind of group of older siblings and how they almost act like teenagers here, but you get the sense that they haven't had an insane amount of time together to really develop too much of a relationship even between each other. And this is an important line here. He's exactly like Aang in the way that he was he's being a father. And that's the whole thing of this. Like, they all don't quite get each other's kind of stance on things. That they, not being in the same position that Tenzin is in, can't understand the pressure that he is under. And he, just having had more time with Aang, can't quite get why they're so angry about Aang's kind of father role. And then especially when you get into more individualistic kind of type things, where you see, like, when they start talking about Kaya and her unwillingness to settle down, and then so the stuff with Boomy as well, not being a bender, they all kind of start getting angry. And then Mako's still slightly confused as to how to really handle Korra here, but just him saying that helps her kind of calm down. And it's stuff like this that really makes me kind of go, when they eventually break up in the end, that was one of the biggest shocks to me in this book, when they actually, like, the second breakup where they said, "Oh, we're not meant for each other," because moments like this, when like he calms her down, just make me go, they work as a couple. I don't know what the whole problem was really. And then we see this kind of double date here, and then Desna's just there for whatever reason, because Eska can't be without him. You guys gotta save me. Ripping off the leech. And here's Bolin revealing that he just hasn't quite went for it. Yeah, he just tugged at the leech instead of just ripping it off. Again, not trying to be insulting to Eska, it's just, that's the analogy. And so we cut back to our Katang kids, I suppose is the best way to call them as a group. I love Boomy's stories here. They're just, I love how just over the top they are. The way he like doesn't just say there was this, this, and this. There was three of this, five of that, and just makes everything so grandiose and important. The music swelling, it's just hilarious, and he's just getting more and more frustrated with how silly it is. But it's a great story. And then they all start kind of needling each other about these little things. They start talking about Boomy and his stories, not being a bender. They start insulting uh, Tenzin about being an airbender, being a typical airbender, about his father, how big of a father he was, and stuff like this. And but all the time, like they're never getting super angry at each other. There's a few moments where they start joking together at each other's expense, acting like brothers and sisters. But there just gets to a point where they just go a little bit too far with it. But it all kind of works out in the end. You see the Benders just getting down so much quicker than he does, and we'll see that he he tries so hard to do things that he maybe shouldn't be doing just to try and prove himself to be as good as the Benders. And especially coming from a family of two of the most powerful Benders, Aang and Katara, that's kind of hard for him to just accept that he's not as good as them. You really feel for Boomy in moments like this. And what they say is kind of true, but at the same time, they don't understand why he feels the need to do that because they are benders and have never kind of had to feel that way. Here's where Senna comes into her own. I really just in a few scenes, I think there's like this one and then the one later with Tonrock. She really comes into her own as this minor character. Really hope we get to see more of this. She just comes across as this just really sensitive person and just really interesting character. Just getting to see more about the Avatar's family. That the delivery here from Korra is fantastic. Janet Barney, she's so angry about the way she's been treated, and then she's getting a bit mad at her mother here for doing this. And the thing about Senna is she's always wanted her family to be together. And once they found out Korra was the Avatar, that couldn't happen. And again, it's this whole thing of like not quite understanding the other person's point of view. Korra's not quite getting why her parents feel the need to. They're not quite getting why Korra feels the need to kind of move away from them, and she's not kind of quite getting why they felt the need to kind of keep the family together. And the whole thing is that her family's just trying to protect her here, but she's at the stage where she needs to kind of not quite move past them, but not rely on them as much as she's had to maybe in the past. And she's at this point now where she is the Avatar. She has to be involved in a lot of these big things that are happening in the world, and that's where her parents aren't quite understanding that. Um, I think the way it's eventually resolved, I think at the end of this episode, I think, or is it the next one, is really well done. But here we see the kidnapping of Unalaq, which is obviously, I think in the end it's revealed that it is Varric who's behind all of this because um, he was the one who was inciting war, and these are Southerners. It was never set up at all in the series that Unalaq had hired people to act as Southerners. It was Varric who was revealed to be doing this, and I think this is a really good action scene. One that doesn't quite get the credit it deserves in the series. It's just the actions that Korra does, how she takes these people down without injuring them using. I think she uses rope eventually. She uses some nice airbending as well in this, and it's just shows how powerful she is compared to just some normal benders. Here we go with the one of the kind of symbols up on the wall, just taking them down without really hurting them and just tying them up in things. It just really is a good scene to portray how powerful she is. And again, the animation, Studio Pierrot can do a good fight, as shown here with the rope. There's really nice animation on that rope, and especially just the character movements and stuff like that. And then here she goes chasing the person she thinks is her father, showing kind of how much she's lost faith in him. And her reaction when she sees it's not her father, and especially in relation to, you know, the fact that she even thought that her father could do that is huge. And then there's the reveal that he was innocent. He wasn't going to help them. He was asked, but he refused. And just how Korra feels about this is really important. And Unalaq knows that it was Varric behind this. There was some speculation that maybe he and Varric were working together, but that never happened. Korra really makes a good decision here, where Unalaq was kidnapped in the heat of the moment. He's just going to have them locked up, and then Korra is the balanced avatar here, where she says, let them stand trial. She realized that even though they were people and they might have had some goal about freeing people by kidnapping him, but they committed a crime by kidnapping them, and as much as they're her people, they need to stand trial for what they did. But Unalaq is not like judge, jury, and kind of executioner at the same time. And they're sick of kind of Kaya acting as their mother. Tenzin and Kaya are sick of him acting as this kind of kid, even though he's the oldest, and just being this adventurous kid type guy. And then Tenzin thinks he's the responsible one, having to be the last airbender and all this other stuff. And there's the interesting reveal about Kaya that she left for a long period of time and only came back when Aang died to be with Katara, which is really interesting that she at some stage needed to find herself in this family and went off on her own. And interesting that the credits start actually rolling, and there's still a few minutes left in the episode. Just interesting setup that there's something else is going to happen in the episode. And then it just all comes to a head. They're all angry at each other, not understanding each other's points of views, and they all just kind of go off. And the key thing here is that they've all lost track of kind of like the fact that they're looking for Iki, and they're willing to split up and not get the best out of looking for her over some kind of family squabbles, which is ultimately, what they ran away from in the first place. I love this scene here because it shows that the two sides again understand each other a bit here. She realizes kind of the emotions that were behind everything when she feels bad about even thinking that her father could have done any of this, and the fact that she just walks in, breaks down in tears, for a character so strong to do that and just apologize for even thinking that about him is great. And people were waiting for an apology, but I think it was important that her parents apologized to her. Tonrak apologizes. He never should have held her back. That's correct. Love this whole quote from Senna. All they ever wanted when they found each other was, he was banished, she found him. They just wanted to raise a family, and everything changed from their original plan to just have a happy family. Once they found out she was the Avatar, they had this crazy life, and, she's not done with them. They're still her parents. She just doesn't need them to protect her, overprotect her as much as she needs to. And then this amazing family moment to be just broken up by, you're behind all of this, even though the guy who Unalaq heard said he refused, is just this insane cliffhanger way to end the first part of Civil Wars Part 1. I think it's just an excellent episode. The next one's really good too, but this one just on its own works really well in terms of Korra just making amends with her parents apologizing to her, she apologizing to them, and how that side of the story just works out so well, and how eventually Tenzin, through actually talking to Iki, will make amends with his own siblings in the next episode. It's just as it comes back to the point I made at the start of the episode, Civil Wars wasn't about an actual war battle. It was about just the little wars that happen in families. In this case, between the Katang kids, between Korra and her parents, Korra and her uncle, and all of this sort of stuff. That's what these episodes were about, and I love the kind of character focus. People say Korra's too plot driven. There's not enough character stuff. When these two episodes, while there's plot in them, but they're really character focused, and that's why I really love them as like early Korra episodes. Very underrated episodes, I think, especially after beginnings and stuff like that. But there are some really good episodes early on in this book. But that's my episode commentary for this episode. Thanks for listening, and bye.